Fountain, Better Than the Dining Hall by Addison Crosby, Tressa Glacken, Connor Knox, and Megan Rotino. This is the engineering design cycle that we follow. The first part is identify the problem. We represented an elegant combination of engineering and art through the construction of a water fountain.
The second part of the engineering design cycle is identifying criteria and constraints. Our first constraint is the time that this project must be completed by, which is FEDD Day on November 21st. This project cannot exceed $40. The size of this project means that it must fit in a 2-foot by 2-foot square. Height was not restricted, but it must be easily transported to the venue on FEDD Day. Thanks, Connor, for the use of your car. Electricity. Incorporation of off-the-shelf water pumps are the only electrical component allowed without review by the project guru. We purchased an off-the-shelf water pump, so we did not need to have anything reviewed by our project guru. Power outlets were available on FEDD Day. However, we did not bring an extension cord, but we still got to plug it in, so everything was just fine. Water also had to flow against gravity. Continuing on criteria and constraints, one of the following components had to have been incorporated in the design. The use of water as an actuator in which the fountain continuously and automatically circulated the liquid, or the use of something other than an electrical pump in which the setup time would be less than 1 minute and the fountain could run for greater than 4 minutes, or the use of a student-designed and constructed laminar flow water movement. Another constraint was that we had to minimize splashing. Yet another constraint was no live animals permitted.
The third part of the engineering design cycle was brainstorming possible solutions. There were 3 fountain types that were proposed: the vortex fountain, the laminar flow fountain, and the multi-layered fountain. The fourth part of the engineering design cycle was to generate ideas. We narrowed it down to a vortex fountain and a laminar flow fountain after watching many videos on the function and flow of all 3 types of fountains. We approached our E101 TA because we were unsure if the vortex fountain would count as water flowing against gravity. The fifth part was exploring possibilities. We decided against the laminar flow fountain because of the amount and the cost of materials needed. We created the vortex fountain because we were given the okay to proceed with this type of fountain.
Part 6 was to select an approach. We selected the vortex fountain. Part 7 was to build a model or a prototype. A drawing was made for 2 different designs of a vortex fountain. The first uses a smaller plastic tub that would hold the pump's nozzle and act as the vortex part, and a larger plastic bin to be used as the water source and the overflow basin that would hold the pump itself. The second design consisted of 2 wood boxes and 2 small plastic tubs. The first wood box would house 1 plastic tub that would hold the pump, and its wire would be threaded out the side. The second wood box would sit on top of the first with a small wood cutout that would allow the water in the top box to flow back into the plastic tub below. The nozzle from the pump would come up the cutout and into the bottom of the second plastic tub, shooting water at the side of the tub and allowing it to act as the vortex.
The 8th step was to refine the design. We decided to move forward with the second model due to its more aesthetically pleasing qualities. Here are some of the challenges that we faced. The budget constraint. In order to not go over budget, we had to borrow materials from others or use materials that we already had. And waterproofing. In order to make our wood waterproof, we used Flex Seal. And we tried to use duct tape to seal our bucket to the rest of the fountain, but that was unsuccessful. Out of the 17 teams in the morning session of FEDD, we placed 10th. Out of the 60 possible rubric points, we got 43.
When discussing things we would have done differently, many things came up. Like the use of different materials, as in, maybe we shouldn't have built a fountain out of wood. Then, we might have wanted to test our project more to find possible sources of error. Now let me tell you a little story about testing our project. We were testing it in a dorm room, so we did not want to fill the project all the way up with water for fear of having to take the water out after, transport it to the McKimmon Center, and, we probably would have flooded someone's dorm room in the process of trying to get all that water out. So, we just never filled it up all the way until we got to the McKimmon Center. And then, we flooded the McKimmon Center. So, maybe we should have filled it all the way up. Maybe taken it outside. Maybe not built a fountain out of wood. Maybe not assumed that packaging tape is watertight. Yeah. Nope. We tried. Now, if I could give a freshman coming in next year or next semester, whenever they feel like they're ready to come to college, some advice for Fed Day, they should make a timeline and stick to it. Now, we made a great timeline. We were so prepared to, do this project, and then sticking to the timeline, that was a little rough around the edges. And then you should always fully test your project in advance of Fed Day. Also, group chats are there for a reason. Communication is key. Also, answering your text messages. That was a big problem we had on all fronts. Every single one of us ignored that group chat until we were the person typing in it. Yeah, so don't do that. Make a time limit and stick to it. Fully test your project, especially if it involves water. You gotta put all that water in to make sure all that water's not coming out. Alright. Also, make sure you bring lots and lots of towels to the McKimmon Center because you don't want to have to borrow the people's next to you when your product starts leaking all over the floor. Shout out to Tessa Ferguson for the borrowing of her towels. These are our works cited. Overall, this team fountain better than the dining hall would have to conclude that we may not be better than the dining hall, and that's saying a lot. But we definitely put a lot more effort in than the dining hall does, but we would just like to take this moment to formally apologize to the McKimmon Center for the ruin of their carpet. We're very sorry. Have a wonderful Christmas. Bloopers! Don't at all!
Completed by Federal Engineering Design Day on November 21st.
It must be completed by Fed Day, which was on November 21st. The cost of this could not be more than...
The fifth part is exploring possibilities. We created a vortex fountain. We were given the okay to proceed with this type of fountain from our TA. And then we created a laminar flow fountain. We decided against this because of the amount and the cost of the materials needed.
And we're gonna pop to the top. Up away your inhibitions. Some to the rump and strut